The Galactic Preservation Council had a list. A very long, very detailed, very color-coded list of every species in the known universe that posed a threat to cosmic stability. At the very top of that list, underlined 3 times, circled in red, and annotated with 17 urgent footnotes, was the name of a tiny, ridiculous, absolutely baffling species from a forgettable little rock orbiting a medium-sized star in an unremarkable corner of the Milky Way. Humans. My name is Vrael Sonduk, Senior Observer of the Outer Arm Division, and I have spent 42 standard cycles watching these creatures. I have filed 963 reports. I have submitted 4 formal requests to have my assignment changed. All 4 were denied. My supervisor, High Archivist Pello Mun, told me, and I quote, "Vrael, you are the only one who comes back alive." He said it like that was a compliment. It was not a compliment. Let me tell you how this started. 42 cycles ago, the Council detected an anomaly. Stars were disappearing. Not going supernova. Not collapsing into singularities. Just, gone. Vanished. Quietly, without drama, like a candle someone had simply decided to blow out. 17 stars in 4 cycles. The Council, naturally, panicked. The Vorn Empire blamed the Sheth Collective. The Sheth Collective blamed ancient machines left by the predecessors. The predecessors, of course, could not be reached for comment because they had vanished 10,000 years ago. Very inconvenient. I was sent to find the cause. My ship, the Sonduk 3, was equipped with the finest detection instruments in the known galaxy. My crew consisted of 4 Yulani analysts, 2 Brentic engineers, and 1 extremely opinionated navigation unit named Koro, who I suspect was designed to argue with me specifically. Our instruments led us, after considerable calculation and several wrong turns that Koro refuses to acknowledge, to a solar system on the very edge of charted space. A blue and green planet, wrapped in white clouds, sitting there like it had nothing to hide. I had my scanners sweep the surface. Within 3 minutes, Koro said, flatly, "Vrael. There are 8 billion individual organisms on that planet. They are carbon-based. They breathe oxygen. They are currently, and I want you to understand I am reading this correctly, they are currently arguing on a global communications network about whether a certain fruit is yellow or green." "A fruit," I said. "A fruit," Koro confirmed. I looked at my crew. My crew looked at me. Yulani analyst Brexa Ton slowly put her head down on her console. We were watching the wrong species. We were sure of it. Whatever was eating stars, it could not possibly be connected to a civilization that was, at that exact moment, also debating whether their calendar system needed 1 fewer day per year. And then, our deep-range scanner gave a sound it had never made before. A sharp, hollow tone. The kind of tone that means something has just registered on a frequency that the instrument was not built to process. One of the human vessels had left the planet. A small ship. Absurdly small. The kind of vessel we would use to transport documents, not cross the void of space. It was made, according to our material analysis, of refined metals, polymer composites, and what appeared to be a concerning amount of optimism. It had no energy shielding. It had no gravity stabilization. It had no multi-phase drive. It had a fuel system based on controlled chemical combustion. Combustion. Like fire. Contained fire. Pointed downward. That was their solution to leaving a planet. Set something on fire and hold on. Brexa Ton lifted her head from the console long enough to say, "That cannot work." Then the ship launched, rattled through the atmosphere, wobbled past the planet's single moon, and kept going. She put her head back down. I filed my first report that evening. I titled it, Preliminary Observation, Anomalous Species, Possible Coincidence. High Archivist Pello Mun responded within the hour. His response was 3 words, watch them, Vrael. So I watched. Over the next 6 cycles, the humans sent more ships. Then bigger ships. Then ships with other humans inside, and those humans left footprints on their moon and planted a piece of fabric in the dust and declared it a victory for their entire species. Over a rock. With no atmosphere. That was their victory. I watched one of their transmissions from that moment. Their planet erupted in celebration. Millions of them, cheering, crying, holding each other. Over footprints in dust. I sat in my observation chair and felt something I had not expected. I felt uneasy. Because here is what my instruments were also telling me, quietly, in numbers I had not yet put together. Every time a human ship left their system, even briefly, the anomaly reading spiked. Not by much. Not enough to be certain. But enough to notice, if you were the kind of person who noticed things. I was exactly that kind of person. And somewhere in the dark between stars, something was noticing them too. I filed report number 2. I changed the title. It now read, Preliminary Observation, Anomalous Species, Not a Coincidence. Pello Mun's response this time was 4 words, do not lose them. The stars kept disappearing. The humans kept building. And I, Vrael Sonduk, senior observer of the Outer Arm Division, began to understand that I was not watching a civilization at its beginning. I was watching something at the edge of an ending. I just did not yet know whose ending it was. There is a rule in the Galactic Preservation Council Handbook, Chapter 12, Section 4, Paragraph 9, and it reads as follows, an observer must, under no circumstances, make direct contact with a pre-contact species. It is a firm rule. An old rule. A rule written in the blood of 7 previous observers who thought they knew better. I read that rule on the morning of Cycle 43. Then I put the handbook down, looked at my instruments, and made direct contact with the humans. Let me explain why. At exactly the 3rd hour of that morning, Koro woke me with an alert tone so sharp it rattled the water container on my desk. I stumbled to the bridge in a state that my species would diplomatically call, cognitively unrefreshed, and what humans, I had learned from their transmissions, would simply call, half asleep and furious about it. Another star, Koro said. No greeting. No apology for the tone. How far? I asked. Close, Koro said. And then, after a pause that I did not appreciate, Vrael. It is the star these humans orbit. I sat down. Slowly. The kind of slow that happens when your body understands something before your mind has finished processing the sentence. Their star, I said. Their star, Koro confirmed. The readings are identical to every prior event. The vanishing will complete in approximately 9 of their days. Give or take several hours, depending on variables I am still calculating. I looked at the view screen. The planet hung there, blue and white and entirely unaware. 8 billion creatures going about their morning routines. Arguing about fruit colors. Debating calendar systems. Sending small metal tubes into space on controlled fires. 9 days. Brexa Tawn came onto the bridge still pulling on her observation jacket. She looked at the readings. She looked at me. She said, we have to tell them. Chapter 12, I said. Vrael, she said, and her voice had the particular tone of someone who has stopped caring about rulebooks entirely, there are 8 billion of them. I told Koro to open a communication channel on the human's most active frequency. Koro said, I would like it noted, for the official record, that I advised against this. I told Koro that was fine. Koro opened the channel. What happened next was, in the long history of my career, the single strangest conversation I have ever had. A human named Davo Mira picked up the signal. He was, according to our scan, a mid-level communications operator at a ground station in a region the humans called the Northern Territories. He had been eating something during his shift. We interrupted his meal. He was, briefly, unhappy about this. Then I told him his star was going to disappear in 9 days. There was a silence of approximately 4 seconds. Then Davo Mira said, "Okay. Who else have you told?" Not, "What are you?" Not, "Is this real?" Not even a single moment of denial or disbelief. Just, "Who else have you told?" Like I had called to report a scheduling conflict. Like I had said the meeting was moved to Tuesday. I told Brexaton, quietly, off-channel, "This species is not normal." She said, quietly back, "No. They really are not." Within 6 hours, every government on the planet knew. Within 12, they had convened something they called an Emergency Global Coordination Summit, which, from what our scanners could tell, was mostly humans talking loudly over each other in a large room, which is apparently how they make decisions. Within 24 hours, they had a plan. I want to be clear. I have observed 41 other civilizations face extinction-level events. 40 of them spent their final days in a state somewhere between denial and spiritual resignation. One of them, the Taith of the Amber System, wrote very beautiful poetry about it, which was later recovered and archived. The humans built a ship. Not a document transport ship. Not a controlled fire tube. A vessel. Assembled from components already in orbit, stripped from stations, pulled from every project they had in space, bolted together in 4 days by crews working in shifts around the clock, sleeping in their suits, eating from sealed pouches, arguing constantly over the communication channels about structural tolerances and fuel ratios and whether a certain junction point was close enough or needed to be redone. My analyst Brexaton watched the construction feed for 36 hours straight. At one point she said, without looking away from the screen, "Vrael. They are frightened." A pause. But they are not stopping. On day 7, I told Koro to move our ship closer. On day 8, the humans launched. Their vessel was not beautiful. It was not elegant. It had exposed conduit lines along the outer hull. It had 3 different propulsion signatures fighting each other slightly out of phase. It was, structurally, an argument that had been welded shut and told to fly. It flew. And when it crossed the threshold of their solar system, our instruments lit up with readings I had never seen before. Not a spike, not an anomaly, but a full-spectrum output, massive and clean and crackling like a sound wave that had been building for a very long time. The vanishing signal, the same signal that had preceded the disappearance of 17 stars, reversed. It reversed. The readings fell away. The energy signature that had been pressing in on their star like a slow hand simply, quietly, withdrew. I stared at the console. Koro stared at the console. My entire crew stared at various consoles. Nobody said anything for a very long time. Then Koro said, "The source of the vanishing events is not a weapon. It is not a machine. It is a field. A pressure. It is generated, Vrael, by the absence of a certain type of activity within a stellar system. Specifically, the absence of directed, intentional outward movement by a self-aware species." I blinked. The universe, Koro continued, and I could tell even Koro was unsettled by this, appears to require witnesses. Species that go still, that stop reaching outward, that close in on themselves, cause their stars to lose coherence over time. The stars do not vanish because something takes them. They vanish because nothing is watching them anymore. I sat back in my chair. The humans, in their badly welded ship, were talking over their communication channels again. I could hear them through the open frequency. They were arguing about whether the return trip would take 6 days or 7. Someone named Yuka Petrov was insisting 6. Someone named Davo Mira, my original contact, was insisting that Yuka Petrov had been wrong about every time estimate for the past 4 days and should be quiet. 8 billion creatures. 9 days. One ship with exposed conduit lines. And they had saved their star by simply refusing to stay still. I opened my report log. Report number 964. I stared at the blank title field for a long moment. Then I typed, conclusion, the species is not the threat. The species is the solution. Recommend immediate reclassification. Recommend removal from the threat list. Recommend, with extreme urgency, that the Council find more of them. I sent it to Pello Mun. His response came back in under a minute. 2 words this time. We know. I looked out at the blue and green planet. At the ship limping home. At the star burning steadily, quietly, the way stars do when someone is paying attention. Somewhere out there, 16 other stars had gone dark. 16 systems had gone still. And now I had the answer to what had happened to them, and the answer was the most human thing I had ever encountered. Nobody had been watching. I made a note to file a formal complaint about my assignment length. Then I sat back, looked at the star, and watched. Because someone, it turned out, had to.